My name's Daniel, I'm 32, and I guess you could say I've always been the background character in my own family. Not the golden child, not the troublemaker, not even the black sheep. Just the dependable one who showed up on time, paid bills, remembered birthdays, and quietly kept everything running. My younger brother, Ryan, was the opposite. He had this charm that made people forgive him for almost anything. He could wreck a car, lose a job, forget someone's birthday, and my parents would still say, "Oh, Ryan's just got a lot on his mind. He'll figure it out." Meanwhile, if I so much as missed a phone call, Mom would sigh and say, "You're always so serious, Daniel. You never loosen up." I learned early on that my role was to be the responsible one. I paid my own way through college, worked long hours to buy my own apartment, and even sent money to my parents when Dad's hours got cut. But no matter what I did, it never seemed to count for much. That's why, when Mom called me about Ryan's engagement dinner, I said yes before she even finished the sentence. "It's going to be such a special night," she said in her syrupy voice. "We'd love it if you could make it." I smiled, a little hopeful. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, I'd actually feel included. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "Oh, and if it's not too much trouble, we were hoping you could handle the reservation. Just to hold it, we'll pay you back." I should have known. "We'll pay you back" in my family meant I'd never see that money again. But like always, I agreed. I booked a private rooftop space downtown, gave the restaurant my card for the deposit, and told myself it didn't matter. This was Ryan's night. Maybe I'd finally be part of it. The evening of the dinner, I showed up right at 7. Freshly pressed suit, polished shoes, cufflinks I'd been saving. I even brought a bottle of champagne with a custom label for Ryan and his fiancée. For once, I felt prepared, even proud. But the moment I walked into that rooftop space, string lights glowing, jazz band playing softly, laughter ringing across the tables, I realized I'd made a mistake. Because instead of a warm welcome, Ryan grinned at me with that smug look he'd perfected since childhood. He raised his glass, smirked, and said, "Sorry, this table's for family only. But hey, there's a chair for you right over there." He pointed to a fold-out chair by the trash can. At first, I thought Ryan had to be joking. I froze in place, holding the champagne like an idiot gift nobody wanted. My eyes flicked toward Mom, silently asking her to step in, to tell Ryan to cut it out. But she just gave me that tight smile she always used when she didn't want to get involved. Dad chuckled awkwardly and raised his glass. Ryan's fiancée, Claire, didn't even look at me. And then, like it was rehearsed, a few people at the table actually laughed. I felt my face heat up. My ears burned. For a moment, I was 13 years old again, standing outside of a family photo while everyone smiled without me. I forced myself to swallow the lump in my throat and walked toward the folding chair. I set the champagne on the floor beside me, still unopened, and sat down. Alone. My coat still on. The waiter came by and asked if I was with the party. I nodded, but he didn't press. Just set a glass of water in front of me and walked away. For the next 2 hours, I sat there like some stranger who'd crashed the event. I watched them laugh, toast, exchange gifts, and fawn over Ryan's speech about how blessed he was to be surrounded by his closest family. My chest ached as Mom wiped tears when Claire called her the best future mother-in-law anyone could ask for. Not once did anyone invite me to join the table. No one even asked if I wanted to order. It was like I wasn't there. Then dessert arrived, a layered cake with gold flakes, like something out of a magazine. I sat with my glass of water, my coat still buttoned, and realized no one had looked my way in half an hour. That's when the waiter walked over to the head table, leather folder in hand. He glanced around, then approached me. Quietly, he said, "Sir, should I run the balance on the same card we have on file?" My stomach dropped. "What's the total?" I asked, my voice tight. $3, $2.18, sir." At that exact moment, Ryan leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said loudly, "Oh yeah, Daniel's got it." And just like that, every pair of eyes turned toward me. The waiter stood frozen, bill in hand, waiting for me to confirm. I could feel the entire table watching me. Ryan smug, Mom cautious, Dad pretending this was normal, Claire's parents curious. For once, I didn't shrink. I let a slow smile spread across my face, calm and deliberate. Then I said, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "Not my table." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. Ryan's smirk faltered. Mom blinked. Dad sat straighter. Even Claire's father furrowed his brow. The waiter hesitated. "Sir, you made the reservation." "The card." "Yes," I interrupted, still calm. "I booked it. I paid the deposit. But I was told this table was for family only. And I was sat over there." I gestured toward the trash can. "So no. I won't be paying." You could almost hear jaws hitting the floor. I stood, slipped my coat back on, and picked up the unopened champagne. Ryan's face twisted into something ugly. "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. "It's just a joke, man. Lighten up. You always take things so personally." The room had gone still. Even the jazz band seemed to play quieter, as though they, too, were waiting. I met Ryan's glare head-on. "Yeah," I said evenly. "That's the problem. You all think it's funny, until it's at someone else's expense." For the first time all night, I wasn't the one shrinking into the shadows. I had every pair of eyes locked on me, and I wasn't going to let them look away. Ryan scoffed and turned to Mom for backup, like he always did. And right on cue, she straightened in her chair, pasted on that tight smile, and said, "Daniel, let's not blow this out of proportion. You're being dramatic. It was just a joke." Those words hit me harder than Ryan's smugness ever could. Just a joke. The same excuse she had used my entire life whenever I was singled out, pushed aside, or humiliated. "He's just sensitive," she'd say to relatives when I was younger. "He's just tired," she'd mutter if I protested. "Don't take it so seriously, Daniel." Always the same dismissal. Always my feelings reduced to overreaction. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Right. A joke. Like sitting me by the trash. Like making me pay for a party I wasn't invited to. Just a joke. Claire's father finally spoke, his voice cold and cutting. "You invited this man to your engagement dinner and sat him next to a trash can?" The table went tense. Ryan opened his mouth, but for once, no smooth words came out. Mom rushed in. "It wasn't like that, he's exaggerating." I cut her off. "No. I'm not. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I wasn't even acknowledged." But when the bill came, suddenly I mattered, right? The waiter still hovered with the folder, clearly uncomfortable. The silence grew heavier. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my chest, but I stood straighter. For the first time, I wasn't the punchline. I could see it in their faces, the cracks forming in the perfect family performance. Ryan's smirk was gone, replaced by something sharp and panicked. Mom's smile twitched like she couldn't decide whether to scold me or beg me. Dad just stared at his glass, as if hiding in the bubbles of champagne. Claire's parents looked horrified. Her father shook his head slowly, muttering something under his breath about disrespectful behavior. I adjusted my coat and set the unopened champagne back on the table. Not with Ryan, not with Mom, but directly in front of Claire's father. "Congratulations to the couple," I said evenly. "But I won't be part of this circus." Then I turned to the waiter, who still looked trapped in the tension. "Split the check however you like," I told him. "But my card is off the table." And with that, I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Ryan hiss, "Unbelievable." Mom's voice followed, sharp and desperate. "Daniel, don't you dare make a scene." I didn't even turn around. "I'm not making a scene," I called back. "I'm just finally leaving one." The rooftop doors closed behind me, muffling the chaos inside. I stood there on the quiet street below, the city lights washing over me, my hands shaking from adrenaline. 4 years, I'd swallowed humiliation disguised as humor. Tonight, for the first time, I'd spat it back out. But what I didn't know then was that my mother wasn't done with me. Not even close. I didn't go home right away. I walked. Block after block, past glowing storefronts and late-night diners, trying to burn off the shaking in my chest. My phone buzzed in my pocket again and again, but I ignored it. When I finally stopped under a streetlight, I pulled it out. 10 missed calls. All from Mom. A string of texts lit up the screen. "Mom, Daniel, come back inside. You're overreacting. Mom, you embarrassed us all tonight. Mom, it was just a joke. Why do you always take things so personally?" I stared at the words until they blurred. Just a joke. Always the same phrase, like a stamp she pressed on every wound I carried. Then my phone rang again. Her name flashed. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was tight, the sugary tone gone. "Daniel, do you realize what you did? You humiliated your brother in front of his fiancée's entire family. People are going to talk about this for weeks. Why couldn't you just laugh it off?" I clenched my jaw. "Because I'm not the punchline, Mom. Not anymore." She huffed, like I'd said something ridiculous. "You always do this. You blow everything out of proportion. If you can't take a little teasing, maybe you shouldn't come to family events." There it was. The unspoken truth made plain. She didn't even hear herself. She was already rewriting the night into my fault. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then, quietly, I asked, "Do you even realize how cruel that was?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was ice. "Daniel, grow up." And just like that, she hung up. When the call ended, I stood there staring at the blank screen, the glow of the street lamp painting my hands in cold yellow light. My chest rose and felt like I'd just sprinted a marathon, but all I'd done was listen. Listen to the same old refrain, the same dismissal of my feelings, like decades of history repeating itself in one phone call. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and made myself a promise right then. No more. No more paying, no more placating, no more sitting by the trash just to be near people who treated me like garbage. That night, I didn't go home to my apartment right away. I ended up at a quiet bar a few blocks away, half empty, the kind where the bartender doesn't ask questions if you sit too long over a single drink. I stared at the glass, watching the condensation drip down, and thought about every so-called joke that had chipped away at me since childhood. The time Mom laughed when Ryan pulled my chair out at Thanksgiving and I crashed to the floor in front of everyone. The time I got a promotion at work and Dad shrugged, saying, "Don't brag, Daniel. Nobody likes a show-off." The time Ryan forgot Mom's birthday and she called it cute, but when I missed a family barbecue because of work, I was cold and selfish. Each one a joke. Each one brushed off. Each one a reminder that in my family, I was never allowed to matter as much as Ryan. By the time I got home, the adrenaline had turned into exhaustion. I tossed my phone on the counter and crawled into bed, ignoring the dozens of notifications still buzzing. I thought maybe, just maybe, the silence would last a while. But it didn't. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating again. This time, it wasn't just Mom. Ryan had joined in. His first message was short, typical of him. Ryan, bro, seriously? Last night. You made a scene at my party. I stared at the text, my jaw tightening. Then another came through before I could even think. Ryan, you embarrassed Claire in front of her parents. They think you're unstable now. All because you couldn't take a joke. I laughed out loud, bitter and sharp. Me? Embarrass Claire? He was the one who pointed at the trash can. He was the one who performed my humiliation for his audience. But of course, in Ryan's story, I was the villain. Then the call came. Mom again. Against my better judgment, I answered on speaker and set the phone down on the counter while I made coffee. Her voice was sharp, brittle. Daniel, you have to apologize to your brother. Do you understand how much damage you caused? Claire's parents are furious. They think we raised you wrong. I let the coffee machine hum for a moment before replying. Good. Maybe for once they'll see the truth. Silence. Then her voice, lower, like she was trying to claw control back. You don't mean that. Family sticks together. Family forgives. Don't ruin this over something so small. I picked up the phone, held it to my ear, and said slowly, You sat me by the trash, Mom. You all laughed at me. That's not small. That's not family. Her tone turned icy. You're twisting things. You always do this. You want to play the victim. I almost hung up, but something inside me cracked open instead. Years of silence, years of swallowing every jab, every dismissal. My voice rose, not shouting, but steady, hard. No. I've been your scapegoat long enough. You can keep Ryan on his pedestal, you can laugh at me behind your wine glasses, but I'm done playing along. Don't call me to fix this. Don't call me to pay for this. Don't call me to be your punching bag. I'm out. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Daniel, don't you dare. I ended the call. For the first time in years, I felt a strange quiet settle over me. Not peace exactly, but clarity. I was finally standing my ground. But my family wasn't about to let me go that easily. Within hours, Ryan was at it again, this time with a phone call of his own. His voice oozed fake concern. Come on, man, he said. You don't want to blow up the family over one little night. Just apologize, pay your part, and move on. You know how Mom gets. I didn't reply right away. I just listened to his entitled tone, the assumption baked into every word that I'd cave like always. And that's when it hit me, they weren't worried about me at all. They were worried about losing the convenience of me, the reliable wallet, the dependable background character who never demanded a spotlight. That realization burned hotter than any humiliation ever had. Ryan's voice kept droning on through the phone, his tone bouncing between fake brotherly warmth and simmering irritation. He was trying so hard to control the narrative, just like Mom always did. You've always been too sensitive, Dan, he said with a sigh, like I was a child who needed correction. We tease you because you're so easy to wind up. It's not that deep. Don't ruin years of family ties over something so dumb. I leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the city skyline, and felt something shift in me. I'd spent my entire life letting Ryan and Mom define who I was. The serious one. The boring one. The one who could take a joke. But in that moment, I realized something else. I wasn't easy to wind up. I was easy to exploit. I let him talk himself into a corner before finally answering. My voice was low, calm, steady. Ryan, you didn't tease me. You humiliated me. You sat me by the trash, in front of everyone, like I was nothing. And then you expected me to foot the bill. That's not a joke. That's cruelty. There was silence on the other end for a second. Then he laughed, a harsh, defensive sound. You're blowing this way out of proportion. You think Claire cares where you sat? She doesn't. Nobody does. It was just funny. You're making yourself look bad. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No, Ryan. You made me look bad. And Mom backed you up. That's the pattern, isn't it? You act out, I pay for it, and if I ever protest, I'm the one accused of being dramatic. Ryan's tone sharpened. So what? You gonna cut us all off? Pretend you don't have a family anymore? Grow up, man. You're not the victim here. You've always had it easy. Good job, nice apartment, money in the bank. You think Mom and Dad ever worried about you? No. They had to worry about me. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Yeah, they worried about you because you never took responsibility. And they let me carry the load for both of us. I paid bills. I covered debts. I booked your engagement dinner. And what did I get in return? A chair by the trash can. He tried again, sharper now, his temper leaking through. It was one night. You're gonna burn down everything over this? You sound insane. Apologize to Mom. Pay the damn bill. Be the bigger man like you always do. Stop acting like some martyr. And that's when the truth landed, heavy and clear. That's all I'd ever been to them. The bigger man. The silent financier. The emotional sponge. The invisible son. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and said the words I'd never dared to before. I'm done, Ryan. Done being your safety net. Done being Mom's scapegoat. You and her can spin whatever story you want, but I won't be part of it anymore. The silence on the line stretched, brittle and sharp. Then Ryan's voice returned, but it was different now. Lower, dangerous, with that edge he always used when cornered. Careful, Dan, he muttered. You think you're making some big stand, but you're just isolating yourself. Family talks. People remember who walks away. Don't come crawling back when you realize no one else will put up with you. I felt my chest tighten, not with fear, but with fury. For once, I didn't swallow it. I let it out. You've had everything handed to you and still think you're the victim. If anyone should be crawling, it's you. But here's the thing. I paused, my voice hardening. I'm not crawling anymore. Not for you. Not for Mom. Not for anyone who thinks sitting me by the trash is a joke. I hung up before he could reply. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at my own reflection in the dark window. My hands trembled, but it wasn't weakness, it was release. Years of pent-up anger finally cracking open. But I also knew Ryan. He wasn't going to let me walk away without a fight. And I was right. Because the next move wasn't a call. It wasn't a text. It was something lower, pettier. That evening, as I scrolled through my messages, I saw it, a photo from a mutual cousin. It was from last night's dinner. The whole table smiling, glasses raised in a toast. Ryan and Claire beaming in the center. Mom dabbing her eyes with a napkin. And there, cropped perfectly out of the shot, me. The caption read, What a beautiful night with family red heart. Ryan had erased me. Again. Only this time, I wasn't going to be erased quietly. I stared at that photo on my screen for a long time. Everyone smiling, glasses raised, golden light reflecting off their faces. A perfect picture of family unity. Except the space where I sat, the folding chair by the trash, was neatly cropped out like I hadn't even been there. It shouldn't have surprised me. Ryan had always been good at rewriting reality to suit his narrative. Mom backed him every time, smoothing over his cruelty with those 3 poisonous words. Just a joke. But this time, it wasn't just between us. He wanted the world, or at least the family, to see his version. To see me as absent, irrelevant, disposable. That's when something inside me snapped. I pulled up my phone and opened the family group chat. 4 months, it had been nothing but vacation photos, recipes, and passive-aggressive reminders from Mom. I almost never spoke in it. But tonight, my hands didn't hesitate. I typed. Me. Funny thing about last night. I wasn't cropped out of the photo. I was cropped out of the family. They sat me by the trash and called it a joke. Thought you all should know. Then I attached the full photo, the one I had taken when I first sat down, phone balanced awkwardly in my lap. It showed the whole setup clearly, the beautifully decorated long table glowing under string lights, and me, isolated in a lonely chair shoved beside the trash bin. I hit send. The chat lit up almost instantly. Aunt Lisa. Wait, what? They made you sit there. Uncle Joe. This can't be real. Cousin Mark. Daniel, are you serious? Who does that? I watched the read receipts pile up, one after another, as my family saw the truth laid bare. Then, predictably, Mom jumped in. Mom, Daniel is exaggerating. He's always been sensitive. It was just playful teasing. No need to make this public. I could almost hear her tight smile, see the way she'd smooth her napkin in her lap as she typed. But this time, I wasn't going to let her control the story. Me, playful teasing is a nickname. A prank. Sitting me next to a trash can at my brother's engagement dinner while everyone laughs, that's humiliation. Asking me to pay for the whole night while pretending I don't belong, that's exploitation. Stop calling it a joke. The chat went silent for a few minutes. Then, to my shock, Claire's father replied, Mr. Harris, I was there. Daniel is telling the truth. My wife and I were appalled. The silence after that wasn't just digital. It was seismic. Because for the first time, someone outside our family had confirmed what happened. Someone Mom couldn't dismiss as too sensitive. Ryan tried to salvage it, of course. Ryan, it wasn't that deep. Everyone's making a big deal out of nothing. Dan always takes things personally. But the tide had already turned. Other relatives began chiming in, some cautious, some openly angry. Aunt Lisa, Ryan, that's disgusting. You should be ashamed. Cousin Mark. No wonder Daniel never talks in here. If this is how you treat him. The screen buzzed with messages, one after another, like dominoes falling. 4 years, I had been invisible, erased, the butt of the joke. But now the truth was out, undeniable, and it spread faster than Ryan or Mom could contain it. I sat back in my chair, phone still buzzing, and felt something I hadn't in years, validation. Not revenge, not triumph, just the simple relief of being seen. But as the messages piled up, one thought pressed at the back of my mind. Mom wasn't going to forgive me for this. She wasn't going to back down quietly. If anything, she'd double down. She always did. And when she finally called again, I knew her words would cut deeper than ever. The call came the next evening. Not a text this time, not Ryan's smug voice, but Mom herself. I saw her name flash on the screen and almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But some part of me knew this was the final battle, the last thread to cut or tie. I answered. Her voice was clipped, sharp. No syrupy sweetness, no pretending. Daniel, do you realize what you've done? You humiliated this family. You humiliated me. I let her words hang. For once, I didn't rush to defend myself. She hated silence. It made her fill the space with truths she didn't mean to reveal. Sure enough, she kept going. Do you think your cousins needed to see that? Do you think your uncles and aunts needed to hear about our private matters? You've made us all look ridiculous. Over what? A chair. A harmless joke. Something inside me broke open at that word again. Joke. Always a joke. No, Mom, I said quietly, but my voice was steel. It wasn't over a chair. It was over decades. Every time you dismissed me. Every time you excused Ryan. Every time you told me I was too sensitive instead of admitting I was hurt. This wasn't about one night, it was about my entire life in this family. Her breath caught, sharp like a gasp. Then, with icy certainty, she said, "You've always played the victim. You're twisting things to make us look bad. Ryan didn't mean any harm." I felt my throat tighten, but I forced the words out. Intent doesn't erase impact. Do you know what it felt like to sit by that trash can while everyone laughed? To pay for celebrations I wasn't even included in? To always be told I should laugh off my own humiliation? You call it a joke. I call it cruelty. She snapped back instantly, defensive as ever. Families tease. That's what we do. If you can't handle that, maybe you don't belong at family gatherings. There it was. The sentence I'd been waiting for my whole life, even if she didn't realize what she'd just given me. Permission. I took a long breath. You're right. Maybe I don't belong. Not in a family that laughs at me instead of with me. Not in a family that only calls when they want money. Not in a family that thinks love looks like ridicule. Her silence on the line was louder than any shouting could have been. For once, she had no quick dismissal, no cutting remark. So I delivered the last words I'd ever owe her. I'm done being your joke, Mom. If that means I lose this family, then I guess I never had one to begin with. I hung up. And this time, I didn't shake. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not happy, not yet, but free. The kind of freedom that comes when you finally stop chasing the approval of people who will never give it. In the days that followed, the family chat was a storm. Some relatives sided with Ryan, claiming I'd overreacted. Others reached out privately, telling me they'd seen it too, that they were sorry for staying quiet all these years. A few even admitted they'd been the joke once themselves. But the truth is, none of that mattered anymore. Their validation was nice, but I didn't need it. Not anymore. Because I had finally chosen myself. And as I stood in my apartment that night, watching the city lights flicker beyond my window, I realized something simple but profound. Sometimes the only way to win against people who make you their punchline is to stop playing the game entirely. For the first time in my life, the silence felt like peace.